You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 185. You don't have to hold on to the suffering to validate that it happened. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, my beautiful brave hearts. How's everyone doing? I had such an amazing week last week. I was doing a 4-day fast, and I uncovered so much through that journey of healing. And I was healing my body and my mind through that. I shared some snippets on Instagram if you see me at Breakup Coach Dorothy. It was a really, really great experience. I would love to share more about it on the podcast if it feels right. But I had two main lessons from that experience that I wanted to come on because they pertain to heartbreak. So I wanted to talk about them on the podcast. One of them I'll be sharing this week, and I'm really excited to talk about it. I have personally been doing a lot of healing work around my miscarriage and my personal life. I've really been going through some growing pains, and I am now coming on the other side of it and just loving the other side of it. Once you're through it, it feels so good, you know? Something I found while journaling the other day was I really found myself saying that I was really sick and tired of just feeling sad and angry and disappointed, disheartened about my miscarriage. And I found that fascinating because I talk a lot about feeling your feelings, getting comfortable with those feelings and those emotions. And I really sat with those emotions for the whole process that I've been going through over the past 6 months. And also, I really moved through a lot of those emotions during my fasting process. And one of my intentions for this fasting process was really, can I please transmute some of this energy? Can I co-create with the universe? Dear universe, can we please transmute and shift the energy around this? Because emotion is energy in motion, right? We cannot kill energy or get rid of energy. It doesn't go away. Energy never moves. Energy doesn't go away, or it can't disappear. It can change and shift and transmute. So that was really my whole intention going in. I thought about, I'm just really ready to move this energy around my miscarriage and my personal life. Like, I have felt them. I've felt those energies. I have moved through them in a variety of ways. I've seen the thought patterns. I've done the thought work. I've gotten coached. I have gone to therapy. I have worked on creating new stories and choosing those new stories. And I'm really ready to release this energy as it stands and move into a new energy, welcoming whatever that is, right? So I was really curious why, going into this fasting process, why are these emotions still here? And what came through to me was really astounding to me, because normally whenever I have reoccurring thoughts and feelings that keep circling back, I notice that those are boomerang thoughts, and I don't think that my brain offers them by mistake. Whenever I notice a boomerang thought, aka a thought that keeps circling around back and back to me, we talk a lot about these in the Get Over Your Ex program, but boomerang thoughts and thought scripts, we talk about when these thoughts keep circling back, why are they doing this? It's not a mistake that your brain is offering it to you over and over and over again. So I like to look at, what is the problem my brain is really trying to solve here? Why does my brain think it's useful to keep circling back to this energetic match, aka this thought feeling combo? Because an energy is just like a set of thoughts and feelings. What I realized through all of this is that my brain kept wanting to circle back to these emotions because it felt like if I didn't feel angry and sad and disappointed and disheartened all of the time, that it invalidated my miscarriage experience. It erased the experience entirely if I didn't come back to these emotions frequently. I felt like if I didn't have those feelings anymore, it would mean the miscarriage didn't happen and the loss never happened. Isn't that wild to think about? It got me really thinking about you, the Braveheart who's listening here, and how I have seen this play out in so many heartbreaks. And what I realized was that so many of my Bravehearts, including myself in previous breakups, circling back to the suffering part of heartbreak, which is the optional part, I'm not talking about the necessary pain and grief that is required during heartbreak, but I'm talking about those optional stories that we tell ourselves that compound the pain. Because I think what happens is we keep circling back to those because we're afraid if we let go of the injustice of what happened, it invalidates our experience, it erases it, it feels like it makes it a less than experience. Or what happens, God forbid, if people forget that this terrible thing happened, right? That people will forget that it happened, and then people won't know how terrible of a person your ex is. That's like the energy or the vibe that I see and that I recall and remember from my previous heartbreaks is I really wanted people to know, like, how come no one's seeing this? How come no one else is saying all up in arms, this isn't okay, this isn't right, what he's doing is wrong? And I had this huge aha for my Bravehearts and for me. And that aha moment is you don't have to feel terrible or miserable to prove to yourself or other people that someone treated you poorly, that something in your life happened. Another way that one of my friends would say this is you don't have to feel like trash to prove to yourself or other people that someone treated you like trash. Just like I don't have to hold on to the negative aspects of my miscarriage to validate that it happened. It doesn't mean negative emotion won't appear in your experience, but it means you don't have to hold on to it if you don't want to. It doesn't mean that, at least in my experience, it doesn't mean that I can't celebrate life in other ways with other people for their babies. It's totally welcome and okay if I feel sad, but when I'm sick of feeling that 50% negative experience, I don't have to be afraid that if I don't feel this all of the time and if I don't circle back to this frequently, that experience will be lost in history somewhere, never to be revisited again. And I just want to be extra uber clear that I'm not talking about bypassing your emotions or saying that sadness, is a bad thing. I'm not talking about distracting from your emotions. I'm just suggesting that if we woke up to the idea that the suffering, how bad we were hurt by someone, doesn't validate or invalidate our experience. I'm suggesting that feeling terrible is not a requirement for you to prove to yourself that you were treated poorly. You could be treated poorly and now feel convicted in your decision to leave, even though you feel or still felt, or you felt or still feel sad about it. And at the same time, you could still find joy in your day. You could still enjoy your day. And isn't that interesting? Like, enjoyment in your day is still there, could and can still happen today as you're listening to this podcast. And if you enjoy your day, it's not going to take away the fact that you experience deep loss and devastation and heartbreak. It's not going to take away that someone treated you poorly in a way you didn't deserve or that you had a heartbreaking loss in your life. And isn't that freeing to know that you can let it go and it's still going to be there for you? You can still find joy in your day through letting that go. It was just a huge eye-opening moment for me at least, and I hope it helps you today. If you're someone who's been holding on to that injustice or wanting everyone to see your ex as the bad guy, they did wrong, or if you're someone who's just sick and tired of feeling miserable and you find yourself circling around and around in that misery of your experience, even though you've done so much healing work, I want you to wake up to the idea that that misery is not required for you to prove to yourself that what they did was wrong. It's not required to validate that it happened. It happened, you don't agree with it, and you could still enjoy your day today. You don't have to, but it is an option. Worst case scenario, you try it on, and if you don't like it, you can go back to what you've been doing tomorrow. That thing that happened in the past isn't going anywhere. So if what you've been doing hasn't been working, what if you just allowed yourself to try on the idea that my misery and me feeling like trash or feeling terrible isn't required for me to prove to myself that someone else treated me poorly, or it's not required for me to validate the experience that it happened. That thing that happened in the past will be there in the past tomorrow, and you can choose something different about it tomorrow if you want. I bring myself back to my big heartbreak of 2016, and I think about the main emotion I kept circling back to was anger, right? And that anger is created by thoughts. I had a collection of thoughts like, what he did was wrong, he shouldn't do that, people shouldn't be okay with this. And I remember thinking, if I hold on to this anger, or if he sees how angry I am, he'll realize what he did was wrong, right? He'll realize what he did was fundamentally wrong. He'll notice that moving on so quickly was not okay. That wasn't the right thing to do. He'll change it and come back. And of course, that's not really like explicitly what my brain was saying to myself, but that was the idea in the subconscious, I think, right? So there are two big problems with this logic from my perspective. Number one, when we see someone in pain and suffering, we don't measure to see how deep that pain or how long it lasted, or negate their pain based off of where their pain is coming from, right? We would never tell a kid who lost their favorite stuffed animal that their pain isn't valid because it's nothing compared to the death of a family member, right? We don't compare in that way. Or if we do, we never would say that to someone going through emotional distress. The second point that I want to make is that when your ex is looking at and witnessing your emotional experience, if they do, this is just like, even if they did, like, who knows if they can actually see your emotional experience. If they see and witness your emotional experience, it doesn't change their belief about you and their decision. It actually probably helps them remain in their belief around breaking up and moving on. Of course, you have negative emotions during your breakup, and just like we talked about earlier, we can't bypass them. But when you circle around them over and over and stay in the same negative energy for an extended period of time to a point where it's almost a habit, I'm going to be really direct. It's not an attractive energy. It's not a magnetic energy that people want to be around. And when I see my friends who are going through heartbreak or going through a breakup or something like that, and their ex is acting out of anger or disbelief or frustration or disappointment, I hear time and time again, see, this is why I left. This is what I'm talking about. I just don't want any part of this. I'm so glad I left. Suffering doesn't change belief that inspires action. Rising from the phoenix, empowerment, taking control, moving forward, changes belief that inspires action and change. I want you to think about, something as simple as like this podcast. If you listened to a podcast where we were only talking about the suffering part, does it inspire you to change your belief in a way that jumpstarts action? Probably not. Versus a podcast that we still include the pain, we talk about the pain, but it gives resolution and conviction, and that, that kind of energy changes your belief to jumpstart action and change for you. just find that really fascinating. So those are like the two main, I don't know if we should call them problems, but those two main points that I wanted to make. And here's the solution to all of this if you're finding yourself in a similar position, and it's a really simple 3-step process. The first thing we have to do is become aware, right? Are you doing this? Do you think your suffering, your misery is a requirement in your life to validate an experience, right? Maybe to prove yourself or to the world that someone treated you poorly. Are you doing this? Are you like holding on to an energy or an emotion and constantly circling back to it even after you've processed it? And you'll know you're doing this if you're finding yourself saying, I'm just so sick and tired of myself at this point, right? I'm so sick and tired of this energy. I'm sick and tired of these stories I keep telling myself. You've done a lot of the feel your feelings work. You're just grounded in commitment to transmute and change that overall energy of your day, right? The second thing you need to do is throughout the day, notice when your brain is trying to be in that, doom and gloom, optional suffering about your breakup, about what happened in your breakup. And you need to remind yourself, I don't have to feel terrible to prove that my ex treated me terribly. Or I don't have to hold on to this suffering of this experience to validate that it actually happened. And the third step is I want you to give yourself permission to enjoy the day. Like just give yourself a permission slip for the day. Gift yourself permission to enjoy whatever is presenting in front of you. Let go of it, even if only for like a moment / an activity. Know that what was in the past will still be there after the activity and you can go back to it later. But allow yourself to choose joy in those small moments and know that your experience, even within the joy, is still validated, it is still real, and it's seen. Okay? All right, Bravehearts. If your ex treated you like trash, remember, you don't have to feel like trash to prove to yourself or others that they treated you in that way. Or if you've been holding on to the suffering from your breakup, you don't have to hold on to that suffering to validate that heartbreak or that loss. Simply 1, become aware that you're doing this. 2, remind yourself that it's not a requirement. And 3, gift yourself joy that day, knowing that the past will always still be there to be seen, validated, and it is absolutely real. All right. Thanks for tuning in today on today's episode, Bravehearts. I appreciate you. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to subscribe to the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast for more episodes like this. And if you found any of our episodes helpful, we would love a written review on the Apple Podcast app to help other heartbroken humans turn their pain into power and their heartbreak into happy. I love you all. I will talk to you next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.